I think it's kind of funny that when Luffy's Sun God Nika form actually broke the internet, I completely had no idea about it, and I still had to catch up. So I couldn't fully make a video on that exact form until recently. And so we now have the What If Naruto Was Luffy's Reincarnation video, but it's a tad bit late, I'm not gonna lie. Regardless of that, guys, if you guys go on to enjoy this video, and you think that you fuck with the channel, then definitely consider hitting that subscribe button and turning on those post notifications so you never miss an upload. That said, enjoy.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
My regular approach to what ifs has always been very simple. Usually I start off with a concept and then I pretty much just take that concept, apply it to a Naruto, and see how his personality would change according to the power and the new circumstances that I hand him during his childhood. That's usually what shapes out the rest of the story. But for this specific what if, I decided that writing a story where Naruto was just Luffy's reincarnation and had a couple of his extra powers was most likely going to result in a very similar story that didn't really resonate with me that much. So then I decided, you know what, let me just give him his entire personality. The whole thing, word by word, and pretty much turn this what if into what if Luffy was in Naruto. So it's pretty much still going to be what if Naruto was Luffy's reincarnation, but not really. Anyways though, the way that I see this story going down is, number one, obviously Naruto's still going to be getting the nine-tailed fox, right? Naruto's still going to be having it, and he's still going to be treated terribly by the people of the village. But Naruto doesn't care. He is not sitting there searching for the attention of everybody else. But would he also at the same time? Because obviously we know that Luffy wanted to become the king of the pirates to be the most free in the world. And being a Hokage doesn't really entail too much freedom. I mean, it's the greatest position of power, but Luffy doesn't want to become king of the pirates because he wants to be king of the pirates. He wants to be king of the pirates to be free, to achieve his goal that lies even beyond that. And since we don't know what his goal is or even the full extent of his power quite yet, I decided that instead I'm gonna have him go for something else. He wants to pretty much become the strongest because he wants to change the ninja world. He wants to change the way that people act, and he wants to show people that wars are not necessary, killing is not necessary, and the way of a ninja life is just ultimately just not worth it. He pretty much has Itachi's ideals with a more go-lucky personality that is not going to allow him to take those same decisions. He's going to find options even when there is no options, and that's just the character that we're going to be fiddling with for this what if. Pause. But anyways, we start with the very first scene of Naruto, which we're basically going to have it be Naruto walking into his academy classroom with everybody looking at him, and kids being like, oh, that's the kid that everybody says not to hang around with. He's a weirdo. Apparently I heard he can stretch out or something like that. Naruto says, he sticks out his tongue and he holds his eye down and he's like, you guys suck anyways. I would never want to be friends with you guys. He goes towards the back and has just this smile on his face that people just wonder why he's so happy. They hate it, honestly. He's not sitting there laughing, trying to be the class clown, but he's just laughing because he's having a good time. He literally finds it funny yet people are scared of him. He purposefully acts like a demon just to get a rise out of people, and he finds it hilarious. A couple of people would finally begin to realize that Naruto is not that bad of a guy actually, and he would finally begin to have those friends such as Shikamaru and Choji. Post time skip, we would then end up having Naruto be a completely, older version of himself. He's about 13, 14, 16. Let's go with 16. Let's up the ages of these characters a ton, right? 16 years old, and by now he has about the same control with his powers as, say, Luffy did by the Water 7 arc. Let's say he has about that much control. The Water 7 arc, he still doesn't have second gear. He just pretty much has just normal Luffy. It's just kind of normal Luffy, right? He just has the basic Gomu Gomu no Mi attacks, and he doesn't really name them Gomu Gomu no Mi, but just for the simplicity of the what if, I'm gonna be referring to them as that, just because it would make a lot more sense for me to say Gomu Gomu no Pistol than for me to simply just be like he stretches his arm out and punches, right? It's a lot more recognizable. But regardless of that, we're basically gonna be having this little period in time where Naruto is kind of just like vibing, right? Like he's hanging out with a couple of his friends that he has. At this point, he's practically been accepted just because of this energy that he has, this ability to make allies. So his entire classroom pretty much likes him. And even Sasuke has to admit that he's not that bad of a guy. While he does get annoying every now and then, he has to admit that he has a bit of an infectiousness to his personality. Eventually though, the team stuff would be announced and Mizuki would still try to pretty much get somebody who failed the test to, you know, steal the scroll of sealing, but he would be busted by Hiruzen since he was watching him via the crystal ball. So we kind of just get Team 7 being selected and Kakashi pretty much picking the team up just like in the original, with all of them pretty much going outside and informing of each other of what their likes, dislikes, and goals are. Naruto would say that his goal is to be the most freest person in the world and to conduct change to this world, that he's going to be the one to bring about peace in this world, that he's going to make it so that everybody can have fun, so that everybody can eat, and so nobody has to feel suffering anymore. Sasuke, after hearing that goal, is like, that's extremely idealistic, and he then proceeds to say that he wants to kill somebody. Naruto looks at him and asks him, so who do you want to kill? And Sasuke looks at him and says it's none of his business, right? Naruto then shrugs and Sakura goes next. She's all like, the person, you know what I mean? She's a trash bag, so nobody cares, right? And so we just skip to the next day where instead of everything being kind of similar to how it was in canon, we're going to get this scene where when Kakashi is kind of like, let's say, arriving, Naruto looks at Kakashi Sensei as he's arriving. Naruto's the one that is arriving even more late than Kakashi. Apparently he overslept that night, and Kakashi looks at Naruto and is just shocked that somebody managed to be even later than he was. He tells Naruto that as punishment, he's gonna pretty much have to like do something that won't affect him because of his rubber body, right? He's gonna have to get like I don't know, like I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but basically just a goofy punishment that wouldn't hurt Naruto just because of the simple fact that he's made of rubber. So yeah, it doesn't really do much to him. But we are going to pretty much change one simple, really little thing about this bell test, and that's that Naruto, when he goes off to face off against Kakashi Sensei, when he's counting from 3 to 1, we get this dope scene where Naruto finally is like, all right, gum pistol, right? He shoots his arm out at him, and Kakashi dodges, just being like, how did this kid? And you know, Naruto is like, he's just relentless. He's like, gum bazooka, right? Like he shoots that at him. And Kakashi is like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and dodge. And Naruto's like, damn it, he keeps dodging everything. And so like he just decides, all right then, if he can dodge that, then how about this? Gum rifle. As you know, he throws it at the direction of Kakashi and he's dodging out of the way again. And at this point, Naruto's like, all right, so he thinks he's fast, he thinks he can dodge everything. Well, what about this? He ends up pretty much doing a gum whip and lunging it at the direction, so Kakashi is forced to jump up into the air and ultimately dodge. But when he's in the air, Naruto smiles and just goes, gotcha, as he says, gum Gatling, and a bunch of fists come flying at him so fast that Kakashi is shocked and he has to substitute out of there, right? But once he substitutes out of there, he creates a shadow clone, and Naruto ends up fighting this shadow clone for a couple more minutes until eventually he finally lands a hit, and the shadow clone reveals itself to be a shadow clone, which leaves Naruto to be very angry. But after a fail and attempt over and over again, we would eventually get to a point in time where Sasuke just comes running out from the bushes, being tired of watching Naruto. He jumps over him and he's like, fire style, fireball jutsu, as he shoots it at Kakashi. And you know, obviously Kakashi is able to substitute out of there once again, And Sasuke smirks. He's like, stop using those strange jutsus of yours, Naruto. Why don't you take this serious? Naruto then looks at Sasuke and is like, serious, right? Is this serious enough for you? He then goes on to pretty much expand himself like a balloon, right? Using the Gum Gum balloon attack. And he just begins to bounce. Like he starts bouncing all over the place. And he looks at Sasuke and says, kick me at him. Sasuke smirks. And this for the first time, he's like, I've been wanting to hear you say that forever. He kicks Naruto straight at Kakashi's direction. And Naruto just goes bouncing off into the sunset, right? Like he pretty much just starts bouncing and bouncing and bouncing. Pause. And we basically get this scene where Naruto finally deflates and Kakashi stands over him after having buried Sasuke in the ground, and he ends up actually tying Naruto up to the pole like usual. We get the dope scene where Team 7 feeds him and he accepts, being relatively kind about it, being like, thanks. He begins to grub shamelessly, and afterwards we get the scene where Kakashi informs them that they passed because of camaraderie. And Naruto says, nah, we didn't pass because of that. We passed because I have the bells. And he holds them out right in front of him. And Kakashi looks at his waistband and he's like, when did you? Naruto's hand is like elongated and Kakashi realizes that Naruto pretty much stretched his arm out, grabbed him and brought him back, right? And Kakashi is absolutely shocked because he didn't expect that from Naruto. But Naruto smirks and says that he did it. And he ends up like jumping up into the air and be like, wahoo, you know what I mean? Then we get this really cool scene. And by cool scene, I mean just Naruto lunging up into the air and like stretching his arms out to form like a net. Like he ends up forming a net trap for the cat that they end up having to pursue over and over and over. Because as we know, he obviously has to create the finger net to pretty much catch the cats and make it so that they can take them back for their D-rank mission rewards. That afterwards, we just get this moment where they're informed about the Tazuna mission and about the stakes of the Land of the Waves mission and introduced to the character known as Tazuna. From here, we end up just not really getting too much specific things go down. I mean, I really don't see many things changing in this part of the story. This little portion of everything shouldn't really be too interesting, and we basically only get a very, very minuscule change when it comes to the situation that went down regarding the Demon Brothers, right? Because the Demon Brothers in the original would have made Naruto very scared, would have made him frightened and, not being able to react. But Naruto seeing a threat, finally, he would be like, finally, real opponents. And being the person that he is, he just lunges in, guns blazing, and throws a Gum Gum bazooka at them. Oh my god, he would end up throwing just a Gum Gum pistol at them, right? And once that Gum Gum pistol works, he just becomes cocky. He looks at Sasuke and he's like, I did it, right? And Sasuke's like, whatever, loser, I could have done the same thing. After this, Kakashi reveals himself and they eventually end up encountering Zabuza Momochi of the Hidden Mist Village, right? But this is where events slightly begin changing, just a teeny tiny bit, right? Because obviously in the original, we would have had the moment where Kakashi fights against Zabuza and he gets trapped. This time, Naruto, instead of formulating that same plan with Sasuke that he would have in the original, he would still formulate it, but the execution would be a bit different. Because Naruto now can actually stretch out even when he misses, so he throws him at him, Naruto de-transforms, and then throws a Gum Gum, what's it called? Where like he shoots his leg out, right? And like he swings it at them. That's pretty much what he does, right? And it does make for like a really cool scene where Zabuza widens his eyes and he's like, how did that kid? Because he never expected for anybody to be able to do something like that, right? He used the Gum Gum whip, which catches Zabuza off guard and he widens his eyes, right? And Zabuza's just like, he's just dumbfounded, honestly. But he ends up having to retreat and Kakashi then folds this man like an omelet, right? Afterwards, Haku arrives. And Naruto this time around is not about to just sit there and be like, hey, you can't take him. Like this time he's going to look at Haku and say, hey, I beat him. If anyone's going to decide what happens to him, it's me. Or no, not beat him, but like we beat him. So if anyone's going to decide what happens to him, we are, right? And Haku like gets into a fighting stance, sweat begins to drop down, and Kakashi pretty much ends up getting in the way of Naruto, explaining that they can't really prevent anything here. But Naruto says, nah, we could, as he stretches out his arm, grabs Zabuza and says, take him. I got this. I've been itching for a fight. As you know, he pretty much ends up slamming both of his fists together and says, let me at him. And from here, we get this scene where Haku pretty much just decides that he has to fight. Now Kakashi being exhausted, Sasuke having to fight, with Sakura having to actually hold Zabuza or Tazuno safe, and also watches Zabuza, who is now currently knocked out, right? But from here, we end up getting this moment where the entirety of Team 7, quote unquote, well, I mean, yeah, it is the entirety because Sakura doesn't count, right? So we get the scene where the entirety of Team 7 like pretty much fights off against Haku, and it would actually finally teach Naruto about a blatant weakness that he has. He doesn't really do too well when it comes to the cold. The cold seems to affect him quite a bit more than anybody else because rubber, you can't really freeze it, because if you freeze it at that point you could actually break it, you know what I mean? So Naruto is having a bit of a hard time dealing with this opponent than he would with any others, so he would end up pretty much deciding that enough is enough and he's gonna put an end to this battle. We would have a scene where Sasuke's fighting off against Haku, hand-to-hand combat. Haku's holding back just a slight bit but decides to get serious because Zabuza's life is actually on the line right now. So Kakashi's forced to act in a more like offensive way, and Haku's actually displaying more and more power, being able to actually begin to overwhelm, Kakashi out in speed, showing Naruto that there's people so fast that even if his attacks are unorthodox, they're just so fast that they could actually dodge it. So this would give Naruto the motivation to actually have to step it up. And we would then get this moment where Luffy, or Naruto, sorry, ends up having this realization that he needs to push himself further. So here is where he ends up activating second gear, right? And once he does this and his blood flow would begin to go crazy, he begins to pretty much lunge at the direction of Haku, where we get this really, really dope scene where Naruto's actually able to keep up with Haku. And it's extremely impressive because keep in mind, Haku is not slow. Like, Haku is not a slow character by any means whatsoever. Even in Shippuden standards, Haku wouldn't be considered slow. So Naruto is moving at the very minimum Jonin levels of speed, right? And Naruto is actually keeping up extremely well with Haku. It's completely insane. It is ludicrous how good he's able to actually keep up with Haku. He begins using his strange attack just like usual, and we get this dope scene where he pretty much ends up using the Gum Gatling just like usual, which would end up catching Haku completely off guard because of just the speed of the attack, and this would actually lead him to be able to use more and more attacks, which he would be able to ultimately use to defeat Haku and finally lead an end to the battle. With Haku and Zabuza both unconscious, they end up taking them back to Tazuna's house, where they end up pretty much interrogating them and telling them why they're there. They end up being informed about the fact that, well, it was because he hired them and stuff like that. And Kakashi would say that, that's a dumb reason. Somebody like Gato probably wouldn't have paid them anyways. With Zabuza explaining that they're just going to kill them anyways, and Kakashi saying that there's no reason to kill them. Or so his little, team member here doesn't really want them to die. So Zabuza and Haku are pretty much brought along with the entire journey. Like, they're held up against their will. And, they're both angry and they want to fight back, but they're not harming them. They're feeding them. They're talking to them and not really giving them any reason to try to kill them quite yet. And eventually the day when Gato would arrive would come around, with Gato saying, "So you two were captured. Huh, looks like I have to do everything myself. I'm glad that I was not going to pay you two anyways, because if I did, that would have made it so that I would have lost a lot of money." And Zabuza, after hearing this, would say, "So, you used me. Okay." And he just looks at Kakashi and he's like, "Kakashi, release my restraints. Please, allow me to get my revenge." Kakashi just smiles, and with a kunai, he cuts the restraints, and Zabuza blitzes at Gato and just absolutely murders him and all of his men, alongside with Haku, because they were both pretty angry at the fact that they would have killed this team that was actually nothing but good people, and they wouldn't have even gotten any cash compensation for it. And after they do this, Zabuza and Haku look to them and pretty much just nod, like understanding that they're no longer enemies. And from here, we get this dope scene where Kakashi holds a hand out to Zabuza, saying that, doesn't have to be all bad. They could join the Hidden Leaf Village. But Zabuza says that they're actually a little bit far too gone for that. If they were to join the Hidden Leaf Village, then the Hidden Leaf Village would get problems, and it's just not realistic. And Kakashi would actually agree with him, and so everybody just ends up parting ways, and we just kind of get this dope wholesome scene where the entire conflict was resolved, and the only death that we ended up getting this time was Gato's men instead of what we would have gotten in the original. Jumping into part 2, we end up cutting back to the Leaf Village, and we're currently just in the perspective of, let's say, Hiruzen, right? Hiruzen's sitting there and he's pretty much giving out the checks to Team 7, and he ended up giving them accommodation for the mission. He ended up paying them for a B to A rank mission, so somewhere in the middle of that. So it was a pretty big payday for Team 7, and so they did feel pretty good about themselves after Hiruzen paid them, right? But basically what I see happening during this scene is something that I want to change that didn't happen in the original. Obviously, originally, Kakashi doesn't end up telling Team 7 about the Chunin exams until after, but Hiruzen this time around is going to, raise an eyebrow at Kakashi and be like, so, when are you going to tell your team? And Kakashi would say that he was planning on telling them later, but he guesses that this is as good a time as any, right? Hiruzen then nods and he understands, he ends up taking another puff of his little thing, and he ends up pretty much just watching as Kakashi just looks to his team and essentially explains the Chunin exams and what it entails and what they're gonna have to do. Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura would all definitely be down for it, and all of them would decide simultaneously that what they all want to do is pretty much just go forth with the Chunin exams and try their absolute hardest to, become Chunin. So this pretty much cuts back into the scene where we end up seeing the Sand Shinobis, right? Obviously Team Gaara, and Kankuro is at this moment just pretty much messing with Konohamaru. He has him up by his shirt and he's pretty much just telling him that if he doesn't want to die, then he better apologize to him for bumping into him. Konohamaru looks back at Naruto and he's like, "Big bro, help me!" And Naruto just looks at Konohamaru, sighs, and then goes, "Hey, buddy, if I was you, I'd let go of the third Hokage's grandson unless you want to start a full-out war." And Kankuro just drops Konohamaru and he's like, "Kid, I'm so sorry." And Konohamaru just sticks his tongue out, and Naruto just begins laughing. And we then see Sakura behind him being like, "What? How are you laughing at this? Like, he's disrespecting one of our villagers." And Naruto just goes, "Konohamaru can handle it. He's a big boy. Plus, he doesn't look hurt, does he?" Konohamaru goes, "Nah, a weak ninja like that could have never hurt me, especially not with you around, big bro." And Naruto just looks at him and goes, yeah. Anyways, what do you guys think you're doing here, messing with some of our villagers? And Kankuro goes, "He bumped into me first of all." And then Naruto goes, "So if I'm in your village, some kid bumps into me, I have the right to kill them?" And Kankuro just stays silent after that. From here, Naruto puts his hands behind his head and just looks at the direction of Gaara as he just wonders what's up with Gaara, right? And once he sees them, he's like, this guy looks interesting. So he stretches his hand all the way over there and he's like, "Hey, my name's Naruto." And Gaara, seeing his hand stretch out, is like, "How did you do that?" And Naruto's just like, "Oh, it's just my Kekkei Genkai." And Gaara's like, "Interesting. I'll keep an eye on you." Sasuke looks at Gaara and he's all smug and he's just like looking at Tamari, and Tamari's just thinking that he's cute or whatever. And the interaction just kind of really ends there. I mean, there's nothing really to cover here. This is a very blatantly simple, reoccurring situation that happens hundreds and hundreds of times in my what ifs. But yeah, that happens, and eventually we're now going to be cutting into the perspective of Lee's team, and all of them are pretty much just going to be strolling through the Chunin Tower, right? Getting ready to take the Chunin exams. And when they're doing this, we end up seeing, Team 7 walk in. And it's at this point that Neji sees Lee just absolutely bolt for them, right? He rushes in front of them and tries to get at Sakura, but she's like, "Ew, no, dude, like, look at your eyebrows." And he gets pretty sad, but then he challenges Sasuke to a fight. And the fight pretty much goes down just like it would in the original, right? But after that fight, we end up getting a small glimpse of another fight that actually ends up taking place, which is going to be the fight between Naruto and Lee. Now this fight's going to be going a little different than you guys might expect it to. See, Lee would start off the battle with Naruto almost similarly to how he started it off with Sasuke. He punches Naruto in the stomach, and Naruto's stomach just like goes with the punch. Like it's like Lee's fist almost goes through him, but then it gets like repelled back, right? Because he's rubber. And Lee would be like, "What? This is strange. I've never." But Naruto then goes gum gum pistol, and he hits Lee right in the face, sending him crashing to the floor, with Sasuke just looking up at Naruto being like, "How did you?" And Naruto just looks back at Sasuke and he's like, "I just got it like that, Sasuke." And after this guy shows up and he's like, "Power of youth," right? And then we pretty much just get this really goofy scene with Naruto and like pretty much just holding it over Sasuke's head that he actually landed a punch and he got his ass beat. And Sasuke's pretty salty about it, but what can he do, right? But they eventually go towards the written portion of the exam, and this is where things are not really going to change. I mean, obviously, we're still going to be getting the portion with Naruto, pretty much saying that he'll never give up, that he's going to be, one of the most powerful ninjas of all time. And for that, he needs to be a high-ranking, Jonin at the very least. And from here, everybody else gets inspired or whatever. And then we get the scene with Anko Orochimaru with, that weird creepy scene where Orochimaru just uses his tongue to give Anko a kunai back. But enough of that. But after this, we obviously do get the moments with, Naruto taking a leak, Naruto coming back and finding Team 7 in a mix with Orochimaru, and the scene with Naruto telling Sasuke that, well, he is pretty much a scaredy cat. Yep. We're still going to be getting that scene. I'm not really too sure if in part 1 I ended up saying we were or weren't, but since I don't remember, I'm just going to say that we do get it. And we're just going to be seeing Sasuke's eyes change to the Sharingan just due to pure frustration. And then Sasuke is able to actually somewhat keep up with Orochimaru just a tad bit, with Naruto in his not KCM state, but Kurama Chakra mode, right? Wait, that literally is KTM. But like the One Tails mode, right? He's in his One Tails mode and he's trying to pretty much fight off against Orochimaru, right? And obviously they're doing pretty good at first, but then obviously since Orochimaru is just much more of a skilled shinobi, he is able to bypass Naruto's stretchiness, and he's also able to bypass Sasuke's speed and all the abilities that he has. He's able to very quickly catch hold of Naruto and use the 5-prong seal to put him out of commission. And when it comes to Sasuke, he was able to pretty much just body him and pretty much overwhelm him with sheer speed and stuff. Orochimaru did find Naruto's movement strange, and he thought maybe holding on to a body like this would be useful. So he also ends up actually giving the power of the curse mark to Naruto, but the Nine Tails Kyuubi would have essentially bypassed that so that the curse mark couldn't take him over or even get planted in, because it just healed so fast. And Orochimaru was like, fascinating, right? But after this, when all said is done, he pretty much bites Sasuke's neck and then says, "I'll see you again someday, Sasuke," as he gets out of there. And then we see Naruto on the floor with Sasuke as well. And then we obviously go to the scene where Sakura pretty much is taking care of Naruto and Sasuke. Nothing here really changes. Not even the interaction with the sound ninjas I think should even change, because Sakura in the originals, the one that kind of made Sasuke stop, it's not Naruto. So I think that we're just going to keep that the same, and we're just kind of going to be getting a moment where Naruto just declares that he feels a bit different to Sasuke now, just because of how ominous that chakra feels. That he thinks that he has to keep on his toes because Sasuke just doesn't feel like, well, Sasuke. But regardless of that, we end up cutting back to the Chunin Exams Tower, and Team 7 ends up passing. Obviously, just like they do it in the original, with the preliminaries obviously being a thing. Now Sasuke, it still goes like it does in canon, and the only battle that slightly would change from the original, and by slightly I mean massively, is the Kiba versus Naruto fight. Now, in the original, Kiba would have thought that he had the complete upper hand over Naruto, but this time Kiba has a different perspective on it. He knows about his stretchy ability, he knows that Naruto fights in a very, very strange way, so Kiba's main goal is to pretty much try to beat Naruto before he can even get the chance to try anything on him, right? And Naruto knows that he needs to beat Kiba pretty fast. So what does he do? He pretty much, as soon as the proctor begins the thing, he just looks at Kiba and he's like, all right, time to do Gum Gum Gatling, as he just begins throwing a bunch of punches at Akamaru and Kiba, in like at both of them at the same time, just not even caring about what punch land, what punch doesn't, right? And they do end up landing, and Kiba just gets hit so many times that his durability just couldn't keep up with Naruto's, just offense, and Kiba just gets absolutely pummeled. It is what it is, and Naruto just moves on to the next round. Now, the interaction between obviously Hinata and Naruto still goes down just like it would in canon, with him pretty much telling Hinata not to give up, and then him actually finding himself fighting off against Neji in the actual real finals. After this, we get about a 1 month training period between all the individuals that passed, and after this is all pretty much said and done, we then get the moment of training with Jiraiya that would pretty much entail Kurama training, his strange powers that he has, and him working on Gear 2nd with Jiraiya, and also the summoning jutsu like they would in the original. But since Naruto's personality is just a little bit more funny and easygoing, he does end up kind of having a pretty decent bond with Jiraiya. I don't see much of that changing, and I generally think that this is just a pretty good direction to go with in terms of the story that I'm telling. The narrative isn't going to be changing much here, but I will say one thing. It will be slightly changing in the 1 month after the battle with Neji, because Naruto this time would actually have 1 entire month to learn about Gear 3rd, which is essentially just him being able to like pop his hand up like a balloon and just punch it Neji, right? That's gonna happen definitely in the final exam and battle and stuff like that. So why don't we just get ahead and just jump to the actual meat potatoes of the video, right? So we get into this part, and I just generally see the battle going down something like this, right? Naruto at first just decides to make a bunch of shadow clones, and these shadow clones then begin using these strange gum gum pistols and gatlings and whips. And Neji would use the 100 palm rotation jutsu and be able to pretty much bypass the attack that Naruto's throwing at him. Naruto, seeing that he has to get even more up close and personal to Neji, would do so, and because of Naruto's rubber body like properties, Neji, when he does end up actually landing the gentle fist technique, would actually not be able to hurt Naruto. And I'm not going to be saying that by any means, like it's something in the lines of it tickles him, but it is something along the lines of Naruto is just like rubber, so Neji can't exactly hit the chakra paths like he does with normal people, which is something that shocks him, because Naruto just kind of like chucks it off and is able to just kind of like continue rushing at Neji and trying to throw punches and stuff. And the thing is that Neji won't be able to do anything about it because he doesn't have armament haki. You can't hit Luffy without that, so it's like it's just not hurting him. And so we pretty much just get, I mean, would it technically hurt? I mean, I feel like it would hurt him, but like just not that much. Like it just like just the gentle fist attack, like it would definitely hurt, but just it wouldn't do its intended purposes because of just how Naruto's body works. Because obviously we know like Luffy could get punched and he like definitely feels it, because I mean, Nami, like she slaps the absolute mess out of this man, and we can see the bruising. It's very apparent and clear. So I think that what I just said kind of doesn't really stand, but just think about it this way. Like the attacks land, they definitely hurt, just not as much as they normally would. And Neji's shocked because the effect that he wanted just isn't what he got. So after this happens, Naruto's like, oh, dude, how are you? But then he just decides to clash his fists together and go Gear 2nd. And then from here, his blood flow starts going crazy. And Neji looks at him and, he has this strange, like pinkish reddish hue to his like body, right? But from here, he's able to move at insane speeds that Neji, even with his Byakugan, is barely able to keep up with. Like he's shocked. And Naruto pretty much just begins to overall begin annihilating all of Neji's counterattacks and attacks. He just dodges and is able to just land hits that Neji would have never expected, right? And Naruto eventually hits Neji away to some sort of distance, where finally he decides time for the final one. As he has a couple of his shadow clones appear and they pop up from the ground and they end up grabbing Neji, right? And they hold Neji and they're holding him, and Naruto just goes Gear 3rd. And from here, he pretty much makes a massive fist and just bam, clunks it at Neji, leading Neji to get absolutely hammered by a gigantic fish. Hammered. But anyways, he pretty much just gets hit with Naruto's gigantic fist. And with this comes Neji's immediate knockout. It's just this scene where everybody's like, yo, how did he do that? Bro was a literal cartoon character, right? And Neji is just out here getting knocked out. Like, Neji stood no chance. I'm sorry to say it, guys, but Neji genuinely stood absolutely no chance. It was no chance. Anyways, though, from here we end up getting the battle between Sasuke and Gaara, and that battle generally does stay the same. I'm not going to be changing anything here just because there's no real reason. I mean, Gaara still ends up running out of the stadium, Naruto still chases after him, and the eventual defeat of Gaara still happens basically like it does in the original. I wish I could change things, but just due to the scale of the battle that it is, I can't really say that Naruto's able to just use his Gum Gum abilities and be able to defeat him. Or, sorry, Sun God Nika abilities, right? But because of the nature of the battle, Naruto was forced to essentially have to dodge these huge, gigantic speeds that Gaara is able to display, and he was actually able to keep up with Naruto in his Gear 2nd state. So this is where Naruto is finally going to be learning about a certain thing that he has access to, which is observation haki. When Gaara was throwing one attack with his sand, Naruto was able to see it as if almost in slow motion, perceive it. And so what he ends up doing is pretty much like dodging out of the way and making it so that he had a way of an easier time actually facing off against Gaara. Eventually though, he does end up summoning Gamabunta, and from here he ends up just throwing a Gum Gum pistol at Gaara's head to knock him awake, and from here Gaara finally has his change of heart that he would get in the original. After this, we still have the funeral for Hiruzen because he still does end up dying in this version, and this is when we end up getting the scene where Jiraiya tells Naruto to pack his bags, that they're gonna go find the 5th Hokage. And Naruto was like, what, 5th Hokage already? And Jiraiya's like, yeah, we need somebody to lead us. So he's like, come on, Naruto. And they go off on the journey. And during this journey, we're definitely still going to be having Naruto learning the Rasengan just like he would in the original. But during this training, Naruto would talk to Jiraiya about how he almost saw into the future when it came to Gaara attacking him. And that it happened for a brief moment, but he doesn't know how to train it or how exactly to go about this strange thing that he has access to, right? And what we end up pretty much getting is times where Jiraiya and Naruto would like blindfold Naruto, and they would do the same exact training routine as Rayleigh did with Luffy when it comes to his observation haki. Naruto during these last couple weeks would get pummeled, but eventually his senses would sharpen and he would finally gain decent access to his observation haki, to the point where he can use mediocre observation haki, not like even like post time skip observation haki like Luffy, where he's able to actually just like dodge attacks easily, but you know, a different kind where it's not that strong, but like it's kind of like in the middle of that, right? But regardless of that, we do end up getting this scene with the hotel, with Naruto getting completely ambushed with Itachi and Kisame, and you know, he still ends up looking into the eyes of Itachi. Bro, I've been tired all day. I just need a nap, but luckily I only have a couple of more minutes of recording this, so good. I don't have to stay awake for much longer. I can finally pass out. But anyways, into the story. Itachi and Kisame would watch as Naruto just like backs up slowly, and he holds the hand signs for the shadow clone jutsu. He immediately fills the room up with shadow clones of himself, and they all lunge at Kisame and Itachi, while Naruto pretty much is free to open the window and go to the top of the building. This is when he would be safe, and he would, you know, like look down, be like, finally, I need to go find Jiraiya. And you know, from here, he ends up pretty much running from building to building until eventually he notices that Kisame is in front of him, and he puts his hand on the sheath of his sword, right? And from here, we get a scene where Itachi is behind Naruto, and you know, both of them are just looking at Naruto, who at this moment is just like, shh, damn it. But they go from rooftop to rooftop. Naruto tries to run away, and Kisame is pretty much just playing cat and mouse with him, like he's having fun chasing Naruto down. But with him doing this for so long, eventually Jiraiya would notice the commotion and arrive. And this would be before Sasuke even gets the chance to get there, because of the fact that Naruto this time is actually, jumping from building to building using his gum abilities, so that Kisame can't exactly just kill him off bat, right? He's running as fast as he possibly could, and he would even activate Gear Second, just because he knows that these two guys are not people to be messed with, and that these are guys that he definitely has to take serious, unless he wants to die today, right? But regardless of that, we do end up getting Jiraiya coming in to save the day, and Itachi, still telling Kisame that it's best that they retreat. Sasuke ends up arriving at the last minute, and he ends up catching a glimpse of Itachi, who pretty much escapes, with Sasuke screaming, "You coward! How could you get out of here? Fight me, Itachi!" Naruto from here uses his gum abilities to essentially stretch his arm and put it up in front of Sasuke, holding his hand out in front of him, letting him know not to go after Itachi. And Jiraiya after this would look at Sasuke as he pretty much gets down to his eye level and looks at him and spits some real knowledge. He pretty much goes on to tell him that while he is a very powerful and capable shinobi, he should never underestimate the capabilities of his brother. Jiraiya would go on to state that if he and Sasuke were to fight right now, he would take him out in less than 5 seconds. And even Itachi, for somebody like him, would be an incredibly difficult battle to win. And he would look at Sasuke and literally tell him, "I'm not sure if I could have beat them both. Like, this is not something you should be taking lightly." And Sasuke just kind of looks down in silence and is like, "I'll get my revenge, and I'll get stronger than you and everybody else. I'm leaving now." From here, he goes back towards the Leaf Village, and he ends up encountering Guy along the way. From there, both of them make their way back to the hidden Leaf Village, and then we pretty much just get the original scenes with Naruto and Jiraiya meeting Tsunade. Now, usually I would have this interaction change just a little bit, but just due to the nature of how everything is right now, I think that we're pretty much safe to just keep everything how it is. I mean, I don't really see any real reason for anything to change here, so I'm just going to be saying that Naruto still ends up talking smack, and he still masters the Rasengan. So Tsunade is still able to actually come back to the village, and he still gets the necklace from the first Hokage. And after this, obviously we are still going to be getting the portion with Orochimaru, and Orochimaru using his subordinate Kabuto to just fight against Naruto. Now in the original, this fight would have been very difficult because of Naruto's inability to hit Kabuto with a Rasengan, but with Naruto's stretch ability, I think that him using the Rasengan would actually be a lot easier. Plus the fact that he has Gear Second, so he's able to move a lot faster. This would pretty much just take the difficulty level of this battle for Naruto and take it down a couple of notches. It still would be incredibly difficult, but I think that Naruto still would come out on top, and Jiraiya and Tsunade as well as Naruto would make their way safely back to the village to encounter Sasuke, who still actually is currently there. Now, this is where we're going to be jumping into the part of the story where we're going to be covering what happens with Sasuke. Now, what does happen with Sasuke? See, the thing with Sasuke is that obviously he wasn't hit with the Tsukiyomi by Itachi, and so he didn't see his parents die in front of him over and over. But I definitely think that after Jiraiya told him just how large the gap between their power is, when the Sound 4 offer him that, he's going to be in a very weak and feeble state of mind that he's just gonna accept the offer and go along with the Sound 4. I think that this time he might be a little bit more inclined to return to the village just a little bit, but regardless of the fact, we still end up getting the Sasuke retrieval mission going down, and all of the battles against the Sound 4 ninjas would be pretty much the same as they were in the original. Choji versus the fat guy, Neji versus that spider guy, Shikamaru versus the girl with the little flute, and Kiba versus the guy who can split himself and then ultimately get saved by, I believe it was Kankuro. But regardless of that, we pretty much get into the battle between Naruto and Kimimaro. This is something that I haven't really covered in a lot of my what ifs, and I think it would be generally interesting to see what would happen here, because it's almost as if Luffy is fighting a swordsman if you really think about it. Obviously a very, very pokey swordsman, because it's like the dude can like shoot bones out from anywhere. So if, you know, Naruto punches him, boom, boning him, and it's just gonna cut. It's definitely gonna pierce Luffy. So I mean Naruto. And so what we're gonna pretty much end up getting is just a scene where Kimimaro is like, I have a bone ability. And you know, Naruto's like, I don't care, I need to get to my friend. And so he just goes gum gum Gatling, and right, he throws the attacks at the direction of Kimimaro. And I think that he would be very, very easily able to just dodge all of the attacks, leaving Naruto to be like, what? And then having to activate Gear Second, ultimately leading him to finally be able to tag Kimimaro, and eventually having a very, very dragged out fight until, of course, Lee arrives. And from here, Naruto's able to safely get away from there and go after Sasuke. They would have their same encounter that they have in the original, but Naruto would look to Sasuke and say, why? You need to come back, Sasuke. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's waiting for you. Sakura's waiting for you. I'm waiting for you. You don't get to just leave for power when you want, Sasuke. And Sasuke's like, you wouldn't know what it's like to lose everybody. And Naruto's like, you're right, I wouldn't. But if you leave, then I would know what it's like to lose you. And for you to do that to anybody else would be cowardly and selfish of you, Sasuke. And, you know, Sasuke looks at him and says, you wouldn't understand. Activates his Sharingan and rushes at Naruto, who's still in his Gear Second, mind you, and both of them immediately begin clashes. Naruto throws a Gum Gum pistol, followed by a Gum Gum whip, followed by a Gum Gum hammer, and just a Gum Gum Gatling, and just a bunch of Gum Gum attacks. And he and, you know, what's it called? He and Sasuke are both just going at it until it gets to the point in time where Naruto begins having even more difficulties actually keeping up with Sasuke. It's becoming increasingly way more difficult for Naruto to keep up with Sasuke's levels, and it's almost as if Naruto is kind of being pushed to his absolute limit. He's kind of deciding that he needs to pretty much let out his full power, or he's not going to be getting anywhere with Sasuke. Sasuke's just so powerful at this current moment, with his Sharingan activated and even curse mark, that Naruto realizes that he needs more. So eventually he would finally begin to draw upon the power of the Nine Tails, and this would give him a huge edge. Now, normally with Gear Second and the Nine Tails and the Rasengan and his stretchy abilities, I think that this would definitely be more than enough for Naruto to be able to battle Sasuke. Not to mention the simple fact that Sasuke's Chidori is made out of, well, lightning, and so he won't even be able to attack Naruto with that. I think that it's very safe to say that Naruto, with his abilities that he now has currently handy, would definitely be able to slap Sasuke around and snap some sense into him, making him forcefully return back to the village. And once the battle is all said and done, Kakashi would pretty much arrive and see that Naruto pretty much took Sasuke out. You know, I think it would have been a cool scene if Kakashi was the one who went after Sasuke. That would be awesome. Like seeing Kakashi have to fight against the Sound 4 and then Kimimaro. That would just be sick. I don't think he would, like, okay, he has to fight against 4 ninjas, Kimimaro, and then Sasuke. I don't think Kakashi has a chakra for that. So I think that it still would have been cool to see Kakashi do all these battles, but, you know, with full stamina, mind you. But since he wouldn't, I don't think he would generally get through the whole thing. I don't know. You guys leave me down below what you guys think about that. Like, that point in particular. Do you guys think that Kakashi could have passed the mission single-handedly? Maybe with the squad of a couple of other Jonins or something like that? What do you guys think? That said though, let's see. So they return to the village, and this is where we're going to kind of be cueing the time skip that we get in the original. And during this time skip, this is where Naruto would pretty much end up learning everything that he learns in the, you know, One Piece storyline, such as, you know, Gear 4th. Is it Gear 4th? Yeah, it is Gear 4th. Such as Gear 4th and observation haki, armament haki, and even a tad bit of Conqueror's haki. Something that he didn't have access to pre-time skip and that he never even showed the ability to be capable of. But now it's seeming as if Naruto's going to come back to the village a lot stronger than he would be in the original. I mean, normal Naruto just refined his taijutsu, ninjutsu abilities and came back with a bigger Rasengan. Of course, he was practically way more skilled as a ninja and he had to refine all of the bad habits that he had during those years, but now he actually got to learn a lot more things, 4 things to be specific, and he didn't really focus too much on the power of the Nine Tails. So let's just say that it still kind of like takes over him a tad bit, even when he's in his like second tailed or third tailed stage, right? But regardless of that, we're now going to be jumping into, you know, what happens after the time skip, and all that really changes here is pretty much just going to be the Kazekage retrieval mission. I mean, I really see no reason for Naruto's interactions with Tsunade and even the bell test alongside Sakura would change. The difficulty level would pretty much just be taken down a couple of notches, and that pretty much makes that's pretty much is going to be the case for all and everything that happens from here on out. I think that the battle between Deidara and Naruto this time when he goes after the Kazekage would definitely be very, very interesting, because it's like explosions versus rubber. Like, how does that work? But regardless, Sakura still defeats Sasori, and Naruto and Kakashi are both able to swiftly get Deidara to pretty much retreat and, you know, lose an arm, I believe it was. And then we obviously get the portion in time where, following these events, we end up pretty much having everybody return to the village, and that means Sasuke too, because he's actually in the village right now. He was training with Kakashi for the time skip, and he ended up learning quite a couple of skills. He's pretty much around the same power level as he would have in canon, and him and Kakashi are practically almost equals in this version. Like, because Kakashi would have been training alongside Sasuke, so he would have gotten stronger as well. But regardless of that, we then jump into what would happen after this situation, which is essentially just going to be the Asuma's death part, and even Naruto learning about Jiraiya's death, I believe it is, because that still is going to be happening just like it does in the original. I don't really think that we should change that. I think that it's definitely something that this version of Naruto needs in order to kind of mature more as a person. So I think that we're going to be keeping that constant, and Sasuke's going to be the one who's there to actually cheer Naruto up this time around instead of Shikamaru. Obviously, he still does his part, but it's mostly going to be Sasuke who's there by his side, and Sakura as well. But all that aside, we jump into the battle against Kakazu, and yes, Naruto would have learned the Rasen Shuriken during this portion of time, and yes, he is going to be using his Gum Gum abilities, such as stretch his arm out and BAM! Hit Kakazu with his Rasen Shuriken. It would be a super dope scene. And even Sasuke being there could have practically stepped up. But I do believe that Sasuke at this moment would be going off to fight his big brother Itachi. And so we're going to pretty much be keeping that battle constant, as well as the kidnapping of Sasuke and pretty much the Mangekyo Sharingan awakening of Sasuke. He would still want to attack the 5 Kage summit, and we still would get those same interactions, as well as the 4th grade shinobi's war being, you know, started by Obito. But, you know, with Sasuke doing what he's doing right now as of these current moments, everybody from the other opposing villages would be like, you guys are traitors, you guys have so many rogue ninjas, right? And basically what would end up happening is we get these really almost mirror like scenes as in the original with the 4th grade shinobi world war battles, because I just don't really see anything generally changing during this portion. We're gonna practically be keeping everything the same here. But one thing that is definitely going to be changing is the final battle against Obito. This is generally what I was trying to get to, because I think that this is going to be such a cool battle. Obviously, we know that Obito has the ability to phase through objects, and he's still going to be keeping that ability. But with Naruto having his observation haki and actually having access to Sage Mode as well because of the battle with Pain, that yes, would still happen. He would actually, I'm so sorry, I just realized that I didn't even cover that. I completely forgot about it. But the battle against Pain does happen, and wow, that would have been an interesting battle to cover too. Yeah, let's just cover that, then we're going to be covering Obito, then we're going to cover Madara. So we have 3 battles to cover with non-stop action. Okay, so Naruto versus Pain. How does this pan out? See, me personally, I think that it would start off with somewhat of a fashion like he does in the original, like Naruto does, where he kind of paces himself a little bit, right? Like he immediately gets into the battle with Gear Second, and you know, he uses all of the new abilities that he learned after the time skip. He ends up pretty much destroying one of the things with his Rasengan, and afterwards he ends up having to fight against a couple of Paths of Pain. Now after this, he's able to essentially tap into Sage Mode, and then pretty much go on to just decimate most of the Paths of Pain until we inevitably get to just the Diva path. And this is finally where everything becomes interesting, because Pain would still use the ability that he pretty much summons a meteor in the sky, and like Naruto gets sucked into it. But this time around, Naruto is like, no, Gear Fourth, and you know, he turns into Bouncy Man, right? And from here, he begins flying up in the air, and his hair goes like weird and long, and he's just floating in the air. And from here, he begins to like use his abilities to propel himself at Pain's Diva Path, who pushes him away, and he then propels even faster with Sage Mode, mind you. And he's able to instantly just tag Pain with his Gum Gum Bazooka. No, not Bazooka, but it's like Gum Gum Kong or something like that. Like he charges his fist up and just bam, like one of those with his armament hockey active, of course, would actually leave Pain to pretty much be destroyed. After this, he uses the Chakra Rod receivers, and he does obviously end up encountering Nagato. And this time around, I'm going to be saying that just for, special effects, Naruto walks up to Nagato and conquers Haki is just flaring out of him. And we could just have a really cool scene where Nagato's like, what is this power? And Konan would be like, I'm not sure. They're both on the defensive, until he stops and just begins talking to them saying, why'd you do it? From here, we have the same things that happened in the original begin lining up, and this is when we end up finally jumping back into Naruto versus Obito. Now, Naruto versus Obito pretty much ends up playing out just like it would in the original, where at the very, very beginning, Obito is pretty much like just kind of going in circles around Naruto, but with the help of both Guy and Kakashi, they're able to finally figure out his weakness, and with that added benefit, Naruto's able to essentially tap into Gear 4th Snake Man and essentially use that added speed as well as his Sage Mode and KCM that he has access to inherently overwhelm Obito's phasing ability with so much raw speed that he would actually be able to begin tagging Obito mid-battle. This would be so fast that he's matching Minato's Raijin level speeds, and we would inevitably after this end up getting a battle between Naruto and Obito, which would be very, very dope. It's like some dude like phasing all over the place. Naruto's like throwing his fist and it's like changing directions mid-air. Kakashi and Might Guy are watching this battle, with Might Guy being like, Kakashi, your student is quite impressive. And Kakashi using his Kamui, being like concentrated, just like, yeah, I know. Using his Kamui to try to help Naruto best as he can, with Naruto doing his absolute best to even try to tag Obito every now and then. It would just be an incredible battle overall. And we would eventually get scenes with Naruto dodging in and out of Obito's attacks with his usage of Sage Mode Sensory and Observation Haki, which allows him to peek seconds into the future. And we obviously do get scenes where Naruto flares his Conqueror's Haki, and he's able to use that infused with his attacks to just land various blows, right? And he eventually does end up overwhelming Obito, leading Obito to finally see Madara come in. And then once Madara comes in, he and Obito basically both use jutsus like they would in the original. Naruto goes on to use the multi-shadow clone jutsu after Madara uses the deep forest emergence. And once this all begins taking place, we get the Obito versus Kakashi fight. He taps into the 10-tail state, and Madara is over there fighting against Hashirama, right? He gets off screen, but Naruto is still able to talk no jutsu Obito. And finally, we get to the big bad of the Naruto series, the real big bad, which is Madara Uchiha. Now, Madara versus Naruto would be awesome. I personally think it would be incredible. Imagine Luffy versus Madara. Bro, that just sounds like a dope battle. With Naruto's skill set added on and his understanding of chakra, I think that would be sick. I mean, Madara Susanoo versus, Naruto's abilities. It would be very, very cool to see. But overall, I think that Madara, since he will have the 10 tails and Naruto won't have the 6 paths amp, with, Sasuke actually being thrown into the battlefield around this time, I think that both of them would still end up pretty much getting overwhelmed. But right when Naruto would be about to die, like he would get hit with massive attack from Madara, right? And he practically ends up dying. But it's at this moment, like right after his 9 tails thing gets like taken out of him, right? Like he dies, obviously, that essentially he is able to well, I said 10 tails Madara would fight against him, but that's actually complete false, because he wouldn't get it until he takes it from Naruto. But while Madara goes 10 tails and fights against Guy and all that stuff, Naruto's heart would be like pulsating, it would be beating, and it would be like the drums of liberation, right? It would be like, and Naruto like rises once more, and like you can just hear a laugh from a distance, right as Madara would be healed and be like, you almost killed me, right? And once that happens, Naruto comes back with like the beats of like life and stuff like that, and gear 5th, and also having the 6 paths amp on top of that. This would make for the most broken character in all of like history ever. It would be like orange and white. What does orange and white make? It makes like yellow, right? Yeah, it makes like yellow. So instead of being like how he would be in the original, he'd be like an orange, yellowish, like kind of like tint around him. So basically Sun God Nika, and he would be able to pretty much blitz at Madara, and like literally all of the attacks that Madara would shoot at him, like a lightning style, Naruto would grab it mid-air and throw it back at Madara, and Madara would begin getting shocked. He is forced to go after the God Tree and absorb it to kind of begin matching their levels of strength. And once he does this, he would immediately just have to see as Sasuke and Naruto were both standing side by side, and in a blur, both of them begin moving, with Naruto creating shadow clones to pretty much fight off Madara's limbos, and blitzing in at the direction of Madara, beginning to use absolutely insane attacks and pummeling him. Madara goes to create some distance and activates his Susanoo, and Naruto enlarges himself to the size of a giant, creating a gigantic fist the size of an island as he smashes it down onto the Susanoo of Madara, and Sasuke would shoot an Indra's arrow right at that direction, which Naruto would be helped out with a lot, and this would lead to Madara just getting absolutely pummeled by Naruto and Sasuke for a while, because Naruto was overwhelmingly more powerful, or at least on the same level as Madara, and having somebody who is almost on the same, if not like a little bit less weaker than Madara helping out would just not make things easy for him. This would lead to Naruto and Sasuke catching a well-deserved dub up against Madara, and Madara just kind of having to accept that he lost, and that, you know, this is just his fate. Like, he is just a loser. That's what he is. But, you know, obviously he's not actually a loser, it's just me playing around. But still, regardless, that would pretty much conclude the Naruto what if. Now obviously I could jump into Boruto or cover Momoshiki or cover, you know, Toneri, but I'm just not going to. And this is where I think that the story is cool to be wrapped up with. We took care of all the main antagonists. We covered first part of Shippuden in parts 1 and 2, and now finally we got to the end of the Naruto storyline. If you guys enjoyed the video, as always, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to slap up that like button, and also let me know what your favorite part of the video was, and also leave your what if suggestions down below in the comments. But with that all out of the way, it has been your boy Zether. I'm out. Peace.